Hola chicos, soy Miss Schaefer y hoy vamos a hablar de gramática de adjectives. This is in chapter 1B of your textbook and it's on page 55. So if you want some extra practice, you can go ahead and look there. When you're done watching this video, I want you to be able to answer the following question. What do I need to remember when I use adjectives in Spanish? Now we're going to have a couple of answers to this because there's a couple different things that we need to remember. But keep this in mind. I want you to go ahead and write it down on your paper. And then we're going to answer it in the green box when we're done. Before we go any further, we need to talk about what are adjectives. And this is something I'll tell you guys throughout the year. I learned most of my English grammar in Spanish class. But before we can know how to use adjectives in Spanish, we need to know what adjectives are. So, adjectives are words that describe people and things. So if I want to say you are important, important is an adjective. Or if I want to say the dog is blue, blue would be the adjective. In Spanish, most adjectives have both masculine and feminine forms. This means that we're going to use it differently depending whether we're talking about something masculine or something feminine. So today we're just going to practice with people. If you're talking about a boy or girl, okay, the masculine form usually ends in the letter O, and the feminine form usually ends in the letter A. This is something that you'll want to mark down on your papers as one of the things that we need to remember when we use adjectives in Spanish. So, if we are talking about Marco, Marco is a boy. So we would say Marco es ordenado. Marco is organized because he's a boy, and you can see his name ends in an O as well. We're going to use ordenado. Okay, feminine adjectives are used to describe feminine nouns. So remember, feminine adjectives will end in the letter A usually. So Marta is a girl. We can see this little clue that her name ends in an A as well. So if we want to say Marta is organized, we would say Marta es ordenada. Once again, please go ahead and make sure that you have that down in your notes as something that you need to remember when you're using adjectives. Now, the second thing that you're going to want to remember is that adjectives that end in E describe both masculine and feminine nouns. Adjectives that end in E describe both masculine and feminine nouns. So go ahead and write that down as number 2 in your notes. So if we wanted to say that some people are intelligent, our adjective, is inteligente. This ends in an E. This means that we will not change it depending on whether it's a boy or a girl. It'll still end in an E. So we would say Anita es inteligente. She's a girl, but this ends in an E, so it doesn't matter. We would say Pedro es inteligente también. He's intelligent as well, and we would not need to change that because inteligente ends in an E, so it can describe both masculine and feminine nouns. A little table here that shows some of our nouns. So what we already learned is that for ordenado, the O and the A would change depending on a male or female. We also learned with paciente that the E would stay the same for both masculine and feminine nouns. There are 2 more things that I want you guys to write down in your notes. Number 3 in your notes should be that adjectives whose masculine form ends in dor, the female form or the feminine form is going to end in dora. So you're not changing it from an O to an A, you're just adding the A in this case. Okay, we can see an example here with hardworking. A boy would be trabajador, and a girl would be trabajadora. So if we want to say Juan is a boy, that's like John. So we say trabajador. but we might say Juanita, that's the girl version. Juanita es trabajadora. Okay, the last thing that you're going to put in your notes is right here, number 4, that some adjectives that end in A describe both masculine and feminine nouns. Unfortunately, this is just something that we have to memorize. There's not really any rhyme or reason. The only one on your list right now is deportista. So you might say Tomás es deportista, and you would also say Marta or Maria es deportista. Both of those will end in an A. So if you already feel comfortable with your 4 things that you need to remember when you use adjectives in Spanish, and you have that list written down, you can just go ahead and finish up. Gracias for listening today. But if you want to work on these together, we'll go ahead and write down our 4 things here. One thing that we want to remember is that the masculine form usually ends in an O, and the feminine form usually ends in an A. You can write a complete sentence there. Just a little harder for me on my iPad. The second thing that we're going to remember is that adjectives that end in an E describe masculine and feminine nouns. The third thing that we want to remember is that masculine adjectives that end in dor for feminine will end in dora, like trabajador and trabajadora. And the last thing that we want to remember is some adjectives that end in A describe masculine and feminine nouns. Thank you for listening today. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or let me know. But I hope that this was a good lesson for you, or review, depending on how you're using it. Do remember that if you ever miss class, this is a great option, but it's also a really good opportunity to study for your tests or to review something that you didn't quite understand in class as you do your homework. Thanks for listening, and have a great night.